9, an accessible city. Would someone like to move the motion on that one? These are transport people. So I suppose it's Central City as well. David East and Phil Clearwater. Are there any questions for staff? Yanni?
Thank you. I did put these through to Jane. Jane, to the Acting Chief Executive, I am concerned that Kilmore Street is being delayed, and I do want Salisbury Street and Kilmore Street to be first priority. So, and I want them to be done in a way that works with local communities around the accessible transport plan and around local community aspirations, probably particularly around the NERT. So what's the best way, what's the best resolution to put in here that would enable that to be done? So because at the moment Salisbury Street's going back like for like, and we've got an accessible transport plan in Kilmore Street which is being delayed until Salisbury Street's done. So it just seems to me it's the wrong priority.
I'd have to defer to the other end of the table for advice.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Salisbury Street, so basically when an accessible city was put together, there was what we call the first phase transport projects, which is $72 million worth of priority works to support the anchor projects. As part of that, it indicated what these were. Kilmore Street is one of those priority projects, but what we're recommending here is that that be deferred in part. Salisbury Street is not part of that first phase of anchor projects, and our recommendation is that we don't simply have enough money to include it within the first phase. That the key projects we need to get off the ground are those that are supporting the bus interchange. If we don't get those off the ground, then there's going to be difficulty for buses accessing the interchange when it opens. So that's the reason for this report here, is really recommending that we include further projects within the first phase, but Salisbury isn't one of those. And ideally what we'd like to do is do Kilmore and Salisbury together because they are a pair. And at the moment the way an accessible city says is do Kilmore first. We just don't think that's a particularly good idea. We can do some of the enabling works to ensure that they don't need to be redone, and we've got SCIRT to prioritise that, and that's the ducting and the road marking. So that work doesn't have to be redone when we come back and do it. But it's our recommendation that you do Kilmore and Salisbury together and get a comprehensive solution, because otherwise things will be unbalanced in the network.
And I think Richard will correct me if I'm totally wrong, but the projects that were identified in that first phase, we had very little input or no input into, and it's only since the publication of the chapter that we've then worked with CCDU and revised and refined that programme of projects?
I think there was essentially that the initial programme of projects, that there'd always been an understanding that, yep, they were put in the recovery plan itself, but we'd go back and do a business case and work out, well, were they the best fit for what we want to achieve? Yeah. That's what we've now done, and what we're recommending to you is that some of those get put back and others get included, and the key rationale behind that is really to support the anchor projects that are getting off the ground early,
and those being
particularly the interchange.
Is that SCIRT money's being spent in Salisbury Street now, which seems ludicrous. They're putting back like for like rather than what we've got in the accessible transport plan. So I'd be happy to defer Cambridge Durham Street, given that we still haven't seen a finalised detailed plan for the Avon River, 13.6 million, and put that into doing Salisbury and Kilmore Street now. If it's a money issue, that's fine. I can find the money. It's clearly in here. It just seems to me that we cannot afford to be putting back Salisbury Street like for like when we've got plans to two-way it and plans to do something quite different.
Just with you, Madam Mayor, the work that SCIRT are doing, as the Councillor said, is putting back what was there before, but it's also taking into account what the future of that road is likely to be. And
so they're already doing the underground stuff?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is ensure that if at some point in time traffic lights need to all be altered, we're actually putting the ducting underground to enable that then to retrospectively be fitted. So we aren't ignoring what's going to happen in the future, and we're trying to accommodate what we can at this point in time, but we simply don't have any funding to do those things at this present time. And if we press ahead, what will happen is that the government will say, well, you fund the whole lot because it's not in our programme.
Well,
And therefore, you know, we'll be impacted in terms of having to spend millions of dollars extra to do this.
Yeah, I understand that. So I've identified the funding, so that's not an issue. 13.6 million from TP3. This is the chance, the one chance we get to change the cost share around our transport projects. So I'd like to move, and happy to come up with wording, but I'd like to move that we defer Cambridge-Durham at the cost of 13.6 million and transfer that fund, allocate that funding to the first prioritisation of Kilmore and Salisbury Street.
But we can't, I'm just hearing staff saying that we don't have the ability to renegotiate that aspect of the cost share because it was never in the original priority. Which ones are you adding that weren't in the original prioritisation?
So if you turn to Appendix 2, Madam Chair, that has a list of the projects, and TP1 to TP8, and the TP very originally stands for Transport Project. TP9, 10, 11, and the last one, which has been nominally called TP30, are the new projects that we're seeking to introduce. And the key things with those are that they provide the ability to synchronise with the opening of the bus interchange a year's hence from now.
So are all of the ones above that, are they all in the transport, in the accessible city transport as priority one? That's
correct. And TP3 that Councillor Johansson is referring to is the Cambridge-Durham works, and the reason why we've included that within the first phase as well, or recommended that it be retained, is that supports the Avon River precinct, and that's a critical piece of work.
But is that already in the priority?
Yes.
So why do you think that it's not?
No, what I'm saying is this is the chance. So they're adding projects in that aren't in the priority.
Yeah, but they have to go in because of the. But they have to go in because of the
bus interchange.
Bus interchange.
So that's fine. So what doesn't have to happen is something else, which could be Cambridge-Durham, given that we don't have the finalised Avon River plan, given that we've got flooding issues.
in the priority chapter already.
But
James.
this is changing it. If you read the resolution, this is about changing the cost share agreement.
Yes,
so
I know.
This is the one chance we get to have that conversation. TP8, I mean, the other option, I guess, is just to move that TP8 stays in the first priority as per the cost share, and that the skirt works aligned to that.
Can I apologise for, obviously you sent this question through yesterday and I haven't got it. My counsel would be to council that we don't adopt a resolution such as you're proposing without you having all the implications of that in front of you.
So before this goes to council, can I ask that we get that information? So really the very essence of it is that you've got areas of residential housing being built, you've got areas where you've got communities that...
Can you use your speaker? You've
got areas that have done a lot of planning, you've got an opportunity to look at Kilmore and Salisbury while Skirt are doing the work now, as we speak. As we sit here, they're spending money, putting back what was there. So the opportunity to bring those projects forward, to align with what we want to do in the accessible transport plan and what the community aspirations are, I think is what we need information on. So it might be that we set up another process. It might be that we defer some work around the Avon River because we still don't have the finalised plan and we've got flooding issues. I don't know, but if you could report back as part of this report and how, if we wanted to do that, we could do it, I would appreciate it.
Yeah. Madam Chair, we've revisited the scope of works for the Cambridge Terrace enhancements, which are closely allied to the early Avon River precinct anchor project works. That was a priority project in the gazetted accessible city plan of last October, and so what we're recommending to committee today, I suppose, is the a minimum set of changes to that recommended first phase programme in order to accommodate the new bus interchange with its potential opening in the first or second quarter of next year. So one of the potential risks, I guess, of deferring the work on Cambridge Terrace is that we may not be in a position to maximise the synergy with the work going on the Avon River and the works there. So that is the potential problem with that. Also, my best understanding is that comprehensive costs for doing the streetscape works on both Salisbury Street and Kilmore Street would be in the order of about $15 to $16 million out of that programme. So that is a little more than the sum of money we have remaining in the programme for Cambridge Terrace at the moment, which I think the figure is around
13.6
million. So we would still be 2 million short of the 72 million budget, which we are sticking firmly within.
Well, I'm really happy to stick with the staff recommendation on this, but you know, Yanni's entitled to move an amendment. So what was you work on an amendment, and I'll just take Paul.
It's around the 72 million. I just see that a further 18 million financial assistance is sought from New Zealand Transport Agency, and so that money's obviously not committed. Now, if they don't come to the party and commit that money,
it's the same as. Through you, Madam Chair, it's the same as Sumner Road. It's in the Crown funding agreement. There's 18 million down in the Crown funding agreement from NZTA, but we have to go through a process, like Sumner Road, to get that money, and they have to assess it through, you know, basically their National Land Transport Fund. So they're involved in this, but we still have to go through a process to confirm that funding with them.
is there any chance that they don't fund that 18 million?
There's always a chance. But
case,
we need to work very hard to minimise that chance.
So
There's a lot of work that goes into that.
Are there any other questions? What's your amendment? Oh, sorry, I'm going to take questions first. Jimmy? Yeah.
When I review the 4.4.1 and the 4.4.2, because Tune Street is a two-way system, but the the converter one-way the conversion, and Litchfield is one-way, but become the two-way conversion. But why it's not the same section, like the 4.4.1 is the Doran to Madras, but Litchfield Street is Doran to Manchester Street only. I'm wondering whether the drivers are a little bit confused.
So in terms of 4.4.1, essentially what we're doing is the first phase projects took the one-way and eastbound of Tuam up to basically Durham Street, and we're proposing that to ensure we're aligned with the opening of the bus interchange, that we take it all the way through to Madras. So that's the simple reason for that. In terms of Litchfield Street, what an accessible city says is that needs to be a two-way minor distributor, but it stops at the east frame. So hence the reason why it stops at Manchester Street, because you've got the east frame / stadium supposedly in that location, and at the other end you've got basically the part of Oxford Terrace, which we're looking to, close off in a sense from private vehicles. So Litchfield Street will be a very short street, two-way distributor going in both directions, basically from Durham through to Manchester.
So you mean between the section of Manchester and the Madras Street, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, and one of the key things we need to get going is obviously there's proposals. We've got existing car parks along that street, and there needs to be access into the bus interchange as well, from buses coming up Manchester and into Litchfield. So it's important that we get that piece of work underway as part of the first phase.
Vicky? Just a general question, because I don't have a problem with what you're recommending. But given that the east frame has kind of disappeared into housing and that the south frame has kind of disappeared, do these transport solutions in that plan still make sense?
I think
they do. Okay.
I think by and large, I think they do.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we believe they do. The projects before you today are not just about bus access and traffic access around and to the interchange, but The works on Chewham Street, Litchfield Street, Colombo Street are also very importantly about getting pedestrians and customers safely into that new bus interchange. A very important feature of these works are the streetscape enhancements, which in turn are going to support the retail precinct as well.
So, Yanni, have you got the wording?
Just that as part of this report to council, staff provide information as to how Salisbury Street and Kilmore Street could be brought forward as priority works to align with the skirt repairs and the community aspirations.
So is there a seconder for the... Paul?
I'll second. I think that we need to actually view some of our streetscapes if we wanted to improve the housing amenity, and if we're looking to improve and increase our population in the inner city, and we're wanting to get 30,000 people in the inner city living, we need to supply an environment that actually sort of enables that. So I will support that.
Skirt repair program and community. Sorry. Yep.
And I mean, I've asked for the advice to come back. So obviously, we're not making a decision on the substance of this. We're asking for the advice. So I'd hope that councillors would enable. I did ask the acting chief executive yesterday if I could have some advice on this, but appreciate she needs some more time to get that. So, I just think we've heard the deputation today, and I would just hope that councillors would support getting this further information. My biggest concern is that we're spending money fixing streets that we cannot afford to spend, putting them back as they are rather than in a new way. And, it's a real tragedy that we're, trying to save money with skirt and trying to spend more money with our accessible transport plan without any synergy.
Pauline?
And I'm sorry if I've missed it in the report, but when is the second phase due to kick in?
So there's, I guess if you were to take this document, Madam Chair, and basically say delivery of all this is probably $200 or $300 million. We've got $72 million worth of funding confirmed. What will happen is that we're going through a program business case for the remainder of this, the projects that sit outside the first phase. That will go up to Cabinet, and once that's basically agreed at a staff level, it will come to Council to go into the long-term plan. So Council will have the opportunity to determine what are the next stage of projects that get delivered for an accessible city. And I would imagine it would have to get moderated, as with every other project that Council's got to consider.
So
it's just that that's relevant to if Yanni's proposal, well, not to decide today, but to swap around the Cambridge Terrace, which was meant to align with the bus exchange, but if phase 2 kicks in around that time anyway, it might not affect it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to vote against the amendment because I know what the answer is going to be. We've already put the question. The question is there's skirt repair programs going on at the moment, and that was the note that I'd written down for myself on it as well, because we all come down Kilmore Street from time to time, and there's all that work going on. But what we've been told is that it's been prepared for retrofitting for the system. So, it wasn't included in the stage 1. So I just think that it's going to be wasting staff time to ask them to do this. So that's why I'm going to oppose the amendment. So I'll put the amendment. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. No. Well, we better have a vote on it. So perhaps if you could put up the machine. Rav, we're about to have a vote on the amendment.
System set up.
Eh?
We don't have a voting system set up for these meetings, so we've just got a
Oh, apparently I didn't know. No, don't worry about that. All those in favour of the amendment, put up your hands and we'll count you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And those opposed, put up their hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's carried. So I'll put the total motion, and it was seconded by Paul Lonsdale. I'll put the total motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you.